Grand Theft Auto, shortened to GTA, is a franchise at the peak of gaming, with over 180 million units sold with its latest iteration, Grand Theft Auto 5, and an estimated $1 billion in revenue earned. GTA is on the Mount Rushmore of the gaming industry. However, in the past 10 years, there hasn't been a single new mainline GTA game, with only a quote-unquote remaster of the 3D trilogy being released to horrible reception back in late 2021. This makes you question, if GTA is one of the most recognizable IPs in gaming history, why hasn't there been any new release in the last decade? The question can be boiled down to this. Grand Theft Auto Online and its success, which to some players might seem horrible, Rockstar Games losing what made them special in favor of pushing a mediocre online mode so that they can sell shark cards and milk the goodwill of its fans, which is true to a certain extent. However, what if I could enlighten you with an idea of the quote-unquote true GTA Online experience and what that entails? In this video, I will be explaining my ideas that could possibly create an actually good online experience that could see Rockstar make millions and us players happy. Before I begin, I want to preface that I am not a video game developer, and these are only the ideas of a man, an insane man, crazy, delusional man, who is tired of playing the current GTA Online and only wants it to get better, because I'm tired of grinding Cayo Perico over and over again. It's really starting to get to me. Now, to understand where I'm coming from with my ideas, I need to explain to you that the concepts that I'm about to lay down are heavily inspired by the MMO genre. For those unaware, an MMO stands for Massive Multiplayer Online Game, with the genre encompassing many styles such as third-person action, shooting, and pretty much anything else. The MMO genre is loosely defined, but the concept of it having a lot of people in an open world and lots of content for the players to do in that open world being the backbone of the genre, in my opinion at least. I'm no expert, you know. When I explain a game mechanic that I want to see in the next iteration of Grand Theft Auto Online, I will try to refer to an instance where it is used in an MMO to make an attempt to make it easier to understand. Now that that's out of the way, let us begin with the outside and work our way in with the new Grand Theft Auto Online. First things first though, forget everything you know about the current GTA Online. Try to imagine that I am the first person to explain this concept to you, right? Quote, Grand Theft Auto, but online. Unquote. Sounds great, right? But how would it work? First thing that needs to be done at Rockstar is to separate the GTA Online development team from the main dev team that works on mainline GTA games. That is because in order to create an actually good product, the game needs its own resources and dedicated developers to work on it, because if not, then what would happen is a repeat of the current state of GTA Online, which, you know, if you're watching this video and you play GTA Online, you know what it is. It's pretty bad. Where the dev team is so small, they barely have enough new content for the updates, and those updates are far and few between, creating a cycle of players playing the new update and not returning it to the new one. With a dedicated development team, however, you could keep the game fresh and afloat with a strong player base. That would mean more potential shark cards for Rockstar and a better gaming experience for the players. It's a win-win. You gotta remember, this is a business. Understanding the importance of a standalone development team, now I can explain the structure of the updates. The current way that the Grand Theft Auto Online structures its DLC is that there is one in the summer and a major one, quote unquote major, one in the winter around early December. However, what this creates is extended periods of drought with nothing new except the occasional drip feed vehicle that they add into the game. This structure is not suited for online-centered games because to retain a healthy player base, the developers need to constantly add new things for new and veteran players to do. So instead of 2 updates within the year, the next iteration of GTA Online should do is create expansions, like MMOs, that have a theme and then have a smaller but still reasonably sized updates throughout the year. This way the content is spread out more evenly and there can be a structured narrative, which I will get into later, around the expansions. An example of this is Final Fantasy XIV and their expansions like Shadowbringers or Endwalker. There are major expansions that added a variety of things into the game and were the anchor of the smaller updates centered around them. For the sake of the next examples, I will be assuming that the next GTA game is in fact located in Vice City, and as such will be creating hypothetical content for the game set in Miami, which I hope it is. Imagine if the first major expansion for GTA Online was called something like Business and Narcotics, quote unquote, where the whole theme of the year was creating a drug empire where you can export and import narcotics to the Caribbean or throughout the greater United States in that update. You have major gameplay and narrative features that are introduced throughout the year that keep the game fresh and players interested. While I'm on the topic of expansions, how about adding new areas to the map like Rockstar did with Cayo Perico in the old GTA Online? In my dreams, there is a Grand Theft Auto game where you can travel to Liberty City, Los Santos, and Vice City all within the same map. However, I realized that this monumental task would be short of impossible to do even on the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X hardware. So instead, how about adding smaller locations like the Bahamas or maybe even Cuba and making the players take a plane or boat to the new maps, but these maps would be much more fleshed out in detail than Cayo Perico, as these new maps would most likely be added with major expansions. This is similar to Final Fantasy XIV again because the different cities you travel at the start of the game are accessible by airship. Another thing that this shows is that GTA Online can be creative with what the players can do. Even now in the old version of GTA Online, players have the options of legitimate businesses like the nightclub. But if you add some illicit twists, just like the nightclub underground warehouse, it can fit perfectly within what is believable in a game like Grand Theft Auto. Rockstar has added DLCs for GTA Online for nearly 10 years. They need to become more creative in what the players can actually do if they don't want to fall into the same routine they've already been in. For example, you may have thought that the import-export idea earlier was simple because I made it simple to illustrate that the new coat of paint will not make the same activities have luster once more. There needs to be deep fundamental change within the mechanics to achieve something new and exciting. Instead of having access to the import-export narcotic business immediately, like you would if it were the old version of GTA Online, how about if you link your career in the narcotics industry to the story, showing how you went from a lowly pusher on the street to a smuggler and finally made it all the way to the top and started your own business, with the mechanics of that business being radically different to the ones we currently have. Imagine this. Instead of stealing supplies or buying them for your workers to create product, how about you contact the supplier and do something for them in order to get their supplies? In which case you can swap or drop suppliers depending on what you're creating. Maybe one supplier specializes in chemical products you need to create crystal, while another has easy access to the port and can easily get you plants that you need to process coke. Or how about this? If you complete some prerequisite in the main story of the expansion, you are rewarded a special location where you can cut the supplier because you can source the products yourself, in which case you can be independent but at a cost. Maybe it's easier to get raided or lose product if you are on your own. These shakeups in the formula, however, are what is going to elevate the game into something that will be worth playing. GTA Online will live or die by its expansions, and Rockstar needs to realize that and create content that is worth the player's time. Another major aspect of GTA Online right now is that the story is self-contained within the updates, with the most extensive storytelling I can remember being the two parts of the casino heist. Part 1 introduced the new casino and explained how the Duggins took it from the Chang family, and Part 2 is the Chang family getting their revenge by making you rob the casino. This is an example of an extended narrative that is weaved through the updates that is meaningful. For the new version of GTA Online, the story would have to be incorporated within the themes of that year, as I alluded to earlier. For the year revolving around drug running, the story can be about the player's come up in the drug-filled underbelly of Vice City. However, these themes can center on more than just criminality. Take this for example. Imagine an update in the Bahamas where corporations are fighting for control of prime real estate, and you are called in to shift the tides of the stalemate only to find yourself at a crossroads on who you should support, the corporations or yourself. This would once again play into the dynamic of the story having gameplay consequences. If you choose one of the corporations, then at the end of the story campaign, you have access to some of the profits garnered from the real estate, like a resort or something more illicit. But if you were to choose yourself once again, you would have a much smaller operation, but then it can be completely illicit or completely legal without you having to share any money. The story of GTA games has always been a main aspect of what makes them good, and Rockstar can make unique and interesting stories, albeit not as fleshed out and complex as the ones in the single player games. But in GT Online, to make the mode really stand out as something special, they need to put more focus on the story. Rockstar is entirely capable of doing something like this because they have done it in the old GT Online. They created standalone stories that were interesting and unique, like the Contract DLC in Dr. Dre, or the small but very captivating story of the Cayo Perico DLC. What I'm suggesting is that Rockstar utilizes the long form of storytelling they can create with an online game like GT Online. If you look towards Final Fantasy XIV, you can see that they use the long form of storytelling to create what some people claim to be one of the best stories in Final Fantasy history, which is high praise for such a legendary game series known for amazing storytelling. I'm tired of having characters that are introduced into an update and never serve a purpose ever again, like Sasanta and Moody Man from the Tuners DLC, or ULP from the Doomsday Heist and Operation Paper Trail. How about Agatha Baker from the Casino Update Part 1? Some of you are still getting her phone calls, but after you complete her missions, she is completely absent from the rest of the game, never to be seen again. There is so much potential in the storytelling Rockstar can do with just some planning and an idea of the story they want to tell. Even if the characters of one major expansion are not featured in another, using my examples, if a character from the business of narcotics did not have a presence in the Bahamas update, it would be fine, if that character was fully utilized and served their purpose in the larger narrative. But right now, the way that Rockstar creates characters only to leave them in the wayside is not right. Think about Imani from the Contract DLC. She was just a new mechanic that outfitted the player's cars with new upgrades and a team player in the actual update, but Rockstar barely utilized her. Missed potential. You can replace Imani with Lester and still get the same result, a competent hacker that helps guide the players, but Imani could have been so much more. The story of GTA games is what people remember even after they finish the game, because Rockstar creates memorable characters and compelling narratives, but for GTA Online right now, it seems as if they barely give it any thought and just create new characters and storylines for the sake of the update, and not for actually wanting to create a compelling narrative. And that needs to change with the next iteration of GTA Online. In conclusion, Rockstar Games is at a critical junction when it comes to what comes next for GTA Online. It is beyond reasonable doubt that they will be creating another online mode for GTA 6. However, what they do with that online mode will dictate whether or not the Grand Theft Auto franchise remains relevant for the next 10 years or becomes another historic franchise only remembered for how good it was in the past. It has been nearly 10 years since the release of Grand Theft Auto 5, and the only reason why it's so popular is because Rockstar extended the scope to include a more fleshed out online mode. Some might say that this is the reason for the hiatus of mainline title entries from the franchise, but what matters is what Rockstar actually innovates drastically on the next version of GTA Online to create a quality product and not another money-making scheme with what they have right now. Because if it turns out that they just create the same thing they already have, then I fear for the life of the franchise.